Oh, Matt, we are recording. We are live streaming. For those of you who don't know, welcome to Legends of Be Wealthy, which we host every Thursday on our Scale to Wealth training. One of the greatest parts of the Legends of Be Wealthy is that you as our members get to know other members within the group who may have been with us a little longer, may be brand new members, but it's a great way for us to dive into, and as Tim Ferriss says, pull out all of the different habits, skills, trends that our members are using in their businesses to gain great success. And so with that, Brett has specifically asked us to interview my friend, Matt Ingram. Hi, Matt.
Hey there. Great to see you.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing really, really well. I am very much looking forward to our time together today. I have known you for about how many years do you think now?
Oh man, probably like 4 or 5 years back to the metrics.
Yeah.
Days, like way back. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt was at our very first Be Wealthy, which it wasn't even called that at the time. It was very clever, like Brett's group. Where we had about 6 people in the room. It was just after COVID, and everyone had to sit like 15 feet apart from each other, have a mask on. And we all got together and really talked about what Brett's vision was for the group and to see if it was something that they would want to be a part of. And so Matt was a private client of Brett's and had been working with him for years. And so of course he was included. And Brett shared his passion for, yes, we have a retail real estate business or a mortgage business, but how can we take our operating businesses in the real estate space and create long-term generational wealth? And so Matt was one of our founding members.
Yeah, it was. What an experience too. It was so like, I remember that hotel was completely empty. Like no one was there, right? It was just us.
Yep,
So
that's right.
It was so cool though. And that really was the first time where things started really getting opened up in my mind as far as like the different avenues we could take our business. So it was really super cool to be a part of that.
It was so much fun. And to think it started with 6 people and now what we have today, and to see everyone's growth has just been incredible. So that being said, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Matt, tell us a little bit about your business, where you're located, what your current structure in your world looks like today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm in Greensboro, Winston-Salem, North Carolina area. So it's right in the middle of the state. So I grew up in this area. I've been here my whole life. Prior to getting into real estate, I spent 12 years in pharmaceuticals. So I spent a long time being trained in like that Fortune 500 mentality. So I got a job with them right out of college. Spent a lot of time there and just sort of knew I was ready for a different path. And I always had an entrepreneurial spirit in me. While I was with my pharmaceutical company, went back and got my MBA. And that's when I realized like I want to start businesses. So I started a commercial recycling business. We provided service for like apartments and businesses, things like that. Then sold that, then got into the CrossFit space. That was a really big hot trend at the time, right? So my wife and I started a gym. Then we saw a need for a supply, like a CrossFit equipment and supply business. So we got into that. So a lot of different avenues it took. And then finally, once I sold that last CrossFit supply business, I said, now what do I do? Right. And I had a good friend that said, you should get into real estate. So I said, hey, why not? Right. I always, my dad comes from the builder background, things like that. So it's something I wanted to explore. So got into it in 2017, started, just by myself. In 2018, I added one agent. I always knew I wanted to go that team route. I just love the more business oriented side of things. So started up with that. I think Kayla, I probably met you in like 2018 or 2019 through those early days of metrics and everything. And then really got started in on the investment side probably in 2021. So our retail teams maintain sort of smaller size. We've been 2 to 3 agents for the most part, doing around 130, 140 transactions. And then we're starting to scale that up now. So right now we've got 5 agents, an admin, and we're pushing hard to grow that quite a bit. On the investment side, up until about February, it's been just myself. I did add an acquisitions guy. That's been a big help for us as far as some consistency. But I feel like I've gotten a grasp of a lot of different things. So we've done either wholesale, hotel flips, notes, seller financing, things like that. bought things in my IRA, all of those things. So a lot of different opportunities come across our plate. So it's been great.
Awesome. That helps a ton. I think a lot of times, members or other people in our group, maybe they're still in the scale to wealth, look at some of our mastermind members and say, I've got to have a team like, for example, Springs. I need to have 62 people on my team. Or we had Jason on last week and he was sharing with us, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, he was sharing with us, he's got a goal to get to 300 agents. And I think that sometimes people believe that you have to grow the retail team to a certain point in headcount in order to be able to start on the investment side. And you, as well as, Isabel Stonebreaker, have been really, really strategic in saying, I'm going to have a team that's wildly productive. I mean, 130 to 140 units is no joke, Matt.
Yeah.
And do that and structure it in such a way that now I can go and build the investment arm as well. So tell us a little bit about that transition from going in 2017. I mean, we're talking 5-6 years ago, just you, to now we're going to have 1 agent, 2 agents, 3 agents. You've got a very productive retail team, and then also launching the investment. What was the catalyst of going from just the retail side to now let's go ahead and start on the investment arm as well?
I think the catalyst was Brett, right? You sort of spoke to it earlier where he was like, hey, he had this thing of, yes, you can go list homes and do that, but then really going through the, hey, like how many options are, and it should always be go buy it first, right? Sure. And so I think just opening my mind up, my mind was just not there. I was just focused on, hey, how do I sell more homes? So that was what drove a lot. And I wasn't even thinking around like net worth and, things like that. And so I think having my eyes opened through him coaching me and through all the relationships I've made has been what led me down that path.
Interesting. I know that he definitely has pushed a lot of people down that path that has worked out really, really well. So when you first started on the investment side, Brett would say you're probably in one of the best geographic areas for the investment. How did that first start? How did you look out and say, I got to find my first deal?
Well, I think it started when we were in that first room with 6 of us, and he pulled up my area and we just went through and we were like, hey, this is how you do it, right? And so go through and do these things. And then it just became like, okay, now go take action. Like, that's what Brett's about, take massive action. So then it was just like, go do it. And then I started doing it, and then things started, coming from it. So that was the big thing.
I totally forgot about that. I totally remember now. He was like, hey, Matt, let's try your market. And then he picked it up, just like he does in several of the Scale to Wealth calls, and started saying like, this is a great property. This is a great property. And walk through it. So you go home, and your wife is rather business oriented as well. She's super smart, right? She's a lender. Is that right?
She's a lender. Yep. She's a lender.
So you come home and say, hey, babe, good news. How does that conversation go?
No, I mean, she's pumped. She's always been so supportive of everything that I've done, and she challenges me and she believes in me. So it's great to like, where she's not concerned. She's like, cool, let's go do it. Right. So, and she's been helpful, especially when it comes to like doing our seller financing and things like that. I remember the first time I went through it, I called you. I was like, now who do I talk to? Call the underwriter, all that stuff. But then she did all the back end work, which was great. So that's what she was used to. So I think because she's in that business, she gets a lot of it, and that's been a big help.
Awesome. So you go back home, and do you start looking through the MLS at things that are currently available to buy, or do you start lead generating to direct to sellers? How did you get started?
So we started lead generating. So we were heavy on the phones, and we always have been. So we just changed our scripts up, and we were just heavy on, calling people about cash offers, right? So we did get, quite a few appointments and things like that, just through the prospecting, and tell them what we were looking to do. I let other agents know. We started pay-per-click leads, things like that. And through those things, as it evolved, then we got into mailers and things like that. So we just sort of kept transitioning a little bit.
But started with as low of a cost of lead gen as possible.
Correct. Yeah. So we just I wanted to get a feel for the whole process and just make sure we had all of our systems set up right. And then we just kept kept pushing forward as we saw growth.
Perfect. So I want to kind of stay on that lead gen side just for a second. So now as it sits today, so 2020, it was November of 2020. Brett pulls your market up and says, this is the most ideal market. You go home and say, it's time to go. How do you determine, and you start making calls, cash offers, how do you determine like what your avatar is, or this is what Matt wants to invest in?
Well, I knew the first book we read for that one was Invest in Debt. And so it was around the notes. And so I was like, quiet money, this sounds great. So that's what I went after first, is like, hey, how can I go find some seller finance deals? So we started looking at that. But then I really like mobile homes. I got, accustomed to working with them. I just felt comfortable. So that's been a big thing that we look to take down a lot of times, is focus on that mobile market. So we just seemed to find what worked for us and then just kept doubling down, I would say.
Awesome. So what works for you today? What is kind of your bailiwick, if you will?
So right now, like I said, we're pretty much anything that, if it's single family, usually we're wanting to stay, if we're taking it down, it's under 150. We're looking to always try and resell anything below 250. We're wanting to stay in an affordable price range. Our average price point here is 287. So we're always wanting to stay below that. But again, it's pretty much anything mobile, single family, townhomes, condos, any of those things. It's really price point driven, because we know the market's still so short on inventory in those lower price points. So we're not doing like high end flips or anything that takes a lot of time. I don't love that. I like getting in and getting out quick.
Okay. Tell us a little bit, and I know you sent this over to me. I'd like to pull it up if you don't mind and share it with the group.
Yeah.
You and Brett went on a call recently. Of course, my computer now is taking like 10 minutes to open it. Let me share this. So Brett's a huge believer in, and I know shared with you several times, the need for having a deal hierarchy. So the conversation of first, can I buy it? And how can I then keep it long-term as a rental? Second, can I control it? And that's really, can I buy it and sell it owner financed and hold the note on it, keep the paper and be the bank? Third is going to be, can I wholesale it? Can I generate a pretty good amount of income with little to no risk by selling it to my cash buyer list, and then utilize that to go acquire more? Then it's, if I can't do that, could I add value and flip it? Does it make more sense to take on that additional risk, knowing that the long-term reward will be better? And then last but not least, right, can I double end it with a buyer, or can I list it? So with that, one of the big conversations we've had recently is both Parker, yourself, several of our other members have created some really specific structures and models around the red light, green light to that, versus just being what we all can be at times, which is the deal junkie. I just want to do a deal, momentum's great. That way I can keep rolling, keep flowing. And Brett is so calculated that he believes we have to have a model. So I know you've been working with him on said model, and you are much more educated than me as far as this is concerned from an MBA perspective. So I always think of The Matrix as a movie, and yet you've got a spreadsheet here for it. So, Caitlin, your jokes are hilarious. Anyway, why don't you walk us through what this is, what it means, and how you utilize it?
Yeah, and so I got this from our last Be Wealthy meeting, because I know he had mentioned that Parker came up with something that was like really working well for him. That was a matrix where it was almost, he could really quickly tell like, hey, this works for me or this doesn't. Right. And then Brett's obviously, like, as you mentioned, reiterated that as well. But I think just in that mastermind, the light went off for me. It's like, I need to do this. And part of the reason I needed to do this was I did, as I mentioned before, just hire an acquisitions guy back in February. And I just felt like that when I was always going out to the appointments and when I was looking at all the deals, I knew exactly what I wanted in my head, right? Like I knew what worked for us and things like that. Whereas I started feeling like that he was coming back to me and trying to make a deal work, right? And so I felt like it was costing me a lot of time. So
Yeah.
one, I wanted to get more clarity around our investment business, exactly what works for us and like what we're going to buy. But then two, I wanted to make sure it was a tool that he could look at and say, hey, Matt's going to be, all for this, or Matt's going to really ask me a lot of questions and say, hey, this isn't going to work. Right. And so really ultimately save us some time. So I just started by looking at, say, hey, what seems to perform really well for us? What are some of our better returns on? What projects do we like and do we excel in? So ideally, like I put mobiles at the top because that's usually our first choice, what we're looking to get. I prefer double wides. We do some single wides, but I prefer double wides. We don't want a bunch of land. We live in an area where sometimes you'll have a double wide on 15 acres, and so we just want to almost get like clarity. It's like, does this make the most sense? And so I had ranked them out as far as like, these are the most ideal type properties for us. And the lower it goes on the range, the more questions we're going to have to ask and evaluate, essentially, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So from single family homes, again, I like them on smaller lots. And then two, if they're that starter home price point, that's preferred. As far as like if it's multifamily or sort of condos, townhomes, I'm looking for anything again that's below that 250 point on sale. And then the HOA has to be, this says below 200,000 a month, but it should be 200 a month, right? So we just don't want anything with crazy high HOAs that could throw our resale off or things like that. As I mentioned, the remodel, a lot of times we're not doing major things. What we're looking to do is go in, get in quick, paint, carpet, a couple things. We're not looking to do massive overhauls. So we're really paying attention to, is it something we're putting 15, 30, or is it something that's a larger project? Other property variables too. I think that was the other thing that was important that I started noticing with my guy when he would look at properties, is if they back up to something really noisy, it's not going to be great, right? It's going to impact value a lot. We have to reevaluate, make sure that we're getting that either at a really great number or we're going to disposition it a different way. So we put a couple things as far as the property variables there. And then I've also got, as far as like the dispo, like what are we going to do as far as our disposition? We're still working on growing our cash buyer list a lot more and getting that stronger. So right now our wholesale fees aren't as high as we want them to be. But basically I just put what type of returns we're looking for, what type of minimums are in there. So the whole goal with this is essentially we're able to come in and make these adjustments and look at it real quickly and say, hey, does this property work or not?
How did you start in thinking through the infrastructure here? I love what you've done where, look, there's different property types.
Yeah.
What are my variables with different property types? I might have to remodel it. And what would that mean? And then what are my geographic or location type variables that I really can't control, right?
Yeah.
Like these would be more of your deal breakers. Was this trial and error? Was this systematic? Was this part of your training and thinking?
I think it was systematic and it was based on experience. So again, because we feel real comfortable, I feel real comfortable in the mobile space. So I knew that, right? And then single family, just with some things in the market, I got a little hesitant with saying, hey, cool, I want to go do something that's $400,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just going through and knowing what seems to work and knowing our market really well.
Totally.
And then the property variables were like, we had this one property, it was on 10 acres and it was literally like 30 minutes from anything close at all, like even a gas station. I was like, that doesn't make sense, man. We don't need it. So part of it was him bringing properties to me and saying, hey, this doesn't really make sense. We're going to need to like take this a different avenue, list it, things like that.
What I love about this is it feeds three purposes, in my opinion. One, it stops that friction point between you and your acquisitions guy. Because he's always, all he wants is his commission or his wholesale fee, and he wants to pump any deal he can to you. So he's always selling, and then you're always kind of the bad guy. Like it sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, sorry, you're not going to make any money on that. Cancel it.
Yeah.
Well, it sucks. Like that. I mean, I shouldn't say sucks 12 times in 5 minutes, but it does, It's can really rub on the culture piece there. And so he knows by going through this, hey, this isn't likely that Matt's going to go for this. I might pitch it, but realistically, he's not going to go for it. Second of what I really like is it can fine tune your marketing strategies. So now when you're pulling data to send out mailers, or now when you're pulling the data to make the phone calls, you're really specific on what you want. Having a really specific buy box makes a ton of sense, which is exactly what this is. I also like that your buy box, not that it's as relevant today because not as many iBuyers are moving as quickly. Your buy box is just outside the iBuyers buy box. So when you look at like Open Door or OfferPad, they're going to be in a little bit of a different buy box than what you see here. And so you're just playing on the fringe of what works for them, so that people are more likely to want the cash offer. They aren't going to get it from Open Door, OfferPad, etc., but they can get it from you. And it's still within what makes sense to you because you're a lean machine. The third way I think it really makes sense is protecting yourself from yourself. Well, you're more disciplined than I am. This were me.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Where I would be like, you know what, this is close enough. Like, I really love this house, or gosh, the view on these 20 acres out in the middle of nowhere is incredible. You know, it's going to be great. No, it doesn't work because it's not within 15 minutes of a big box store.
The problem with 20 acres out in North Carolina is there's usually like, you can't imagine how much trash is on this land. Like it's terrible. So we just don't want to mess with that.
I like it. I think this is so smart. So walk us through from a dispo perspective. So your ultimate right now is you want to wholesale it. Is this listed in order of priority?
No, it's not listed in order of priority. I mean, ultimately, I want to acquire as many notes as we can to seller financing. So that's usually always the number one thing that we're looking to do. This is just, I think, as I was doing it, I didn't put it in any order. I just went through in my head and said, hey, if we take this part of, generating cash flow, if you will, which is how I look at wholesale, hotels, and flips, and this is what it has to be, right? If it's more longer term, then we're looking at, notes, things like that, or, rentals, whatever that may be.
Okay. If you are looking at, well, down here on the hard money side, talk to us a little bit about these pieces down here, the hard money.
This, I don't have this complete yet. So we're not in the hard money yet. This is just Brent and I talking things through and just trying to say, hey, what if we add one more layer to this? Right. So when I get into hard money and start doing that, what is that going to look like? So it's just, again, trying to be very systematic in the way we approach things so that we can real clearly say, hey, this works or this doesn't.
How has this changed specifically up here when you look at property types and your disposition strategies? How has this changed versus Matt in 2021?
I think that I know it gave me more structure as far as, to your point, hey, what am I going after marketing wise? Right. And I'm not trying to say yes to everything, because to your point earlier, sometimes you just want to do the deal. You're like, hey, I just want to get this going, things like that. So it gives me some guardrails to operate within, number one. And number two, as I'm growing this side of our business and as we continue to bring in acquisitions people, it gives them basically a template of saying, hey, Matt's going to be good with these things. And what I caught myself doing is when my guy would bring me deals and it fit these criteria, I'm like, yep, let's do it. Let's go. The other ones, he's spending time trying to talk me into it. And, it's not going to work out well. And it just saves everybody time to go this route.
Yeah. And heartache, and mitigates risk, which I think is, a lot of people, I think, look at, well, people like you're wildly entrepreneurial. You've started and sold several businesses. You've built an incredible real estate business. You've made some transitions on your retail team, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. You are constantly moving and evolving and growing really, really quickly. From the outside, people could look at that as a high risk individual. And the fact of the matter is you are anything but. You're wildly and wildly structured. And this allows that structure just to take form in such a way that really mitigates any of the risk that's associated with how quickly you're moving.
Correct. Yeah, I think, Brett's always told me, making money is also about not losing money, right? And making smart decisions and things like this. So this has helped me a lot and get a lot of clarity on that side of the business.
I love it. So you've done, so as it sits today, your primary focus has been on creating promissory notes and holding those in your portfolio. How many notes do you have today?
Not as many as we want, right? Not as many as I want. So I've got four
You're such
notes
a
right
driver.
now. So, but yeah, so that's still constantly trying to figure out. But again, it's making sure they always make sense. Like usually I'm always wanting 20% or more. So they don't always fit into that box.
Matt, you have four-ish notes, right? Four notes that says
Four notes, yeah.
you have four notes that are generating around a 20% rate of return.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I feel good about from where we're at. You know, there's a lot of that's what I love about this room is there's so many people that are much, you know, playing a much bigger game that you can learn from and learn how to really scale that even larger.
I think there is so much here that all of us can learn from as far as the structure and layout and guardrails, as you put it, that you've put here. This is absolutely incredible. Great job.
No, thank you.
I'm super impressed. Brett was absolutely right. He's like, he was really, really passionate about this. You've done an incredible job here. If someone was considering starting, right, they've got an operating business in the retail space. They could be a lender like your wife, retail real estate like you. If they were considering starting to invest and looking at the deal hierarchy a little bit more, what advice would you give them as far as building something out like this to mitigate their risk?
It's a good question. I think really it's understanding where you are on your wealth plan and understanding like, hey, what type of properties are going to help you get to where you want to be. So I think that's a lot of it. Understanding too what you're comfortable with and not just trying to go after everything. I think sometimes starting in one niche and then expanding, that has been more comfortable way for me to grow because I am probably a little bit more conservative on that side of things. So I think those are important. Understanding your wealth plan, understanding how you can start making deals that work within that as well.
Totally. Christopher asked, would you be open to sharing this spreadsheet as a rule of thumb for other people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it.
And I'll put down here before we share it in the portal, that this is still in process for you, but I think this piece will be so unbelievably impactful.
Okay.
And while we're there, so thank you very much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher, I also want to show you, we are in the process of building out, and Shayna, who's on this call, has been a big piece in helping us build this. In our portal as it sits today, we have what's called Be Wealthy calculators. Spoiler alert, Cindy's going to be changing this name to Deal Hierarchy. But in here, we're really establishing kind of that red light, green light for you on deal hierarchy. So we've got a great video of Brett talking about it, how it's changed his world. We've built out the calculators for you so you can see, let me go back a second, sorry. So you can see like, can I buy it? Let's look at the ROI analysis for it to make sure it fits within your buy box. You can put in all this information here, and then it'll populate out for you what the net operating income is, what the cash flow is, the cap rate, cash on cash returns, and expense load. So you can take this calculator combined with your spreadsheet or your guardrails, right? Your buy box, and say, okay, based on this, does this work for me to hold it long-term? So Matt's was that it needed to be, and in order for him to hold a long-term rental, he wanted a cap rate of 8 to 10% and a cash flow of $400 a month. So when he goes in here and he sees his net operating income and his cap rate and his cash flow, he can say red light, green light. And if that's a no, he can just go right back and say, okay, what's next? Can I sell it as a promissory note? And then again, we have the same documentation in there. So you can utilize that. We're creating a template for you that'll help you to say, okay, here's the sheet of what I want. And then that way, every time you're looking at a deal, you can just go right through it and say, no, yes, to know exactly what to do. And Matt was a big inspiration for us in creating all of this to make it easier for you. And then last but not least is, can I wholesale it or should I flip it? you'll put in your initial investment pieces, and then it'll tell you your profit to flip versus your profit to just assign it. So our goal is to make it all science and no art, such that when you're starting to make these moves and starting to build this portfolio to support your wealth plan, you're able to do it in a really, really systematic way. And we have to thank our members like Matt, who've helped us to see that you really do need to have this kind of structure. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cool. I'd like to pivot for a second. So tell us a little bit about, what does a day in the world of Matt look like right now?
Yeah.
Other than building spreadsheets.
Yeah. So typically the morning's like the most important time for me. So I'm very structured in my morning times. I wake up, I usually read real quick, about 20 minutes or so, and then I head off to the gym or either work out at my house. That always is the biggest thing for me in getting my day going, and to get it out of the way. So I'm not trying to save it towards the end of the day or whatnot. So then I head over to our office and get there usually around 8:30. Then we start going through everything. We have a morning huddle every morning, and then just start getting after it. And then I'm still in production on my end. So, I'm obviously running our team, trying to recruit more agents. At the same time, I'm in production as well, still evaluating investment deals, things of that nature.
I love it. So you're still in production, you're running your
Mm-hmm.
team from a leadership component, and you're recruiting, and you're analyzing deals, building your portfolio. Seems like not a lot of excuses there, my friend.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So, but we're trying to grow so that I can pull myself out of some of those things, right?
Yeah.
So the more we can grow and continue to do that. So that's really why we're pushing hard on our recruiting side to start bringing in more agents.
On the structure of your retail business, you have made, so this wealth conversation has gone far beyond just your portfolio, right? It's gone beyond, well, your portfolio has expanded just beyond notes and real estate. So I know you were with a pharmaceutical company before, so I'm guessing we've talked about it a little bit. You had a pretty sizable 401k.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so now taking that from being, whether it's in the S&P 500 or in some index fund, and you're utilizing that to help build this portfolio?
Correct. Yeah. So I've basically took everything. I was fortunate in the sense that I started as soon as I got out of college. I had a great 401k set up with our company and started stashing money behind. And so in talking with Brett, he's like, man, you got to get control of this. It was like with the guy at Edward Jones, and, I was like, whatever. So I moved everything over to directed. And then I slowly am moving everything from the traditional to Roth.
Nice.
Right. And so I'm moving over usually a chunk each year. And so then I've got it set up so I can buy properties in either one of them. So definitely evaluating that. But Brett was instrumental in getting me going and set up in that right direction.
What a cool way to transition that investment vehicle. Direct it. So smart.
Yeah. Just because the returns are so much higher. I mean, it didn't make the guy down the street too happy when I put all my money, but at the same time, it really opened up my eyes. Like, hey, I have no idea what's going on in the stock market. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. That's just not my thing, really. So for me to be able to invest in things I know just makes a lot more opportunity. Makes a lot more sense.
You've also, one of the things I've noticed is you're really, I say disciplined, but you're also very strategic. And you've made some transitions in looking at, from the outside looking in, it seems as though you've made some transitions looking at everything you're doing and how to further monetize or create wealth in it. We joke around a lot, but most of us are using our credit cards that we use for our company expenses really strategically to book gangster travel and vacations with our family. You made a transition in your operating business with your retail team based on wealth recently. Walk us through what that was. What did that look like?
Yeah, so I guess it's been about a year and a half ago, we made a transition, and Brett's always challenged me to continue to look at different opportunities and things like that. And so through the relationships that I gained in this mastermind, I was introduced to Real Broker, and that's where we moved about a year and a half ago. And I felt like it was a great opportunity for us to move to that organization because it was in a situation where we're starting to see some potential for it to grow pretty rapidly, and get in an early way. And at the same time, it gave my agents an opportunity to get multiple revenue streams, something that it's pretty difficult for them to be able to do. Same time, it helped me sort of start different revenue streams as well. So having that capacity was really appealing to me, helping them have stock opportunities and put more investments behind. That's super important to me for my team, because I want them to have epic lives. I want them to start doing more than just like a normal agent.
Sure. I think it's so interesting because not necessarily Real is an incredible brokerage house, as is Keller Williams or EXP.
Yeah.
Works best for you. But the way that you look at it and analyze every piece of your world, all the way back to, I'm going to own a CrossFit gym. They're going to need some supplies at different franchises, like all of those different pieces. You look at not just checking the box in a normal way, but really, how can I wring as much opportunity out of this long term as possible? So I think that that's a challenge we all can take. What are we currently doing that we could make a pivot and maximize it further?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to your point, there's different fits for everyone, and there's no one place that's right for every single business. But for us, it made a lot of sense to make that move. But it is true. It's like, having my wife on the lending side, right? She was in the game way back in 2006, 7, 8, for years. Took a little bit of break when things went crazy and hopped back in because we saw the opportunity to really leverage that piece of our business. So it's always looking at how can we create more revenue streams to balance things out and create more opportunity for everybody in our organization.
I love it. I'd like to ask you some of my crazy questions that we sent you over in advance. So if I ask you one that you don't want to answer, we'll use Brett's safe word, which is orangutan. Orangutan. Outside looking in, it looks as though your world is just spinning on like a wheel, and it's just everything works so seamlessly and so smooth. It looks perfect, Matt. So I've got to ask this one. How has a failure or apparent failure in your life set you up later for success? We've got to hear about one that's gone wrong.
Oh man, yeah. Like I'm far from perfect, and it's far from going smooth, man. I got 2 wild kids running around crazy, and life's really busy, right? So that's a big part of it. But no, I think anyone who goes through their professional life is going to have ups and downs and failures. And so I've got more than my fair share of that. But one thing that jumped out to me that really stuck with me for since it happened, like when I was 22 years old, was this wasn't really a failure, but it was more of a light bulb. So I was with the pharmaceutical company, and we were selling a drug, and they have quarterly reports that come out, and you're force ranked from top to bottom, right? Which I love that idea, right? Because you see where you stand in the whole company, except for the fact that we had 452 reps at the time, and I came in at 451. And I was like, that's not good, right? Because I'm sitting here like, sure, I got this, right? I'm right out of school thinking I can conquer the world, everything's great. And so I get this and I look at it, and it just freaks me out. And my boss at the time told me something that stuck with me over the years, was that the failure or the fear of being last will make you first. Mm-hmm. And so I took that, and it really created, I think, some hunger and grit in me, and just kept me pushing. And so that never happened again, which was a great thing, right? I ended up having a real successful career there. So it wasn't necessarily a failure, but it was a mindset shift. And I think mindset's so important, because I did have a pretty big failure, I would say back in like 2015. So I mentioned to you that I had this CrossFit supply company, and we were CrossFit at that time was like wide open. It was like the rage, right? And so I built this company up. I actually left my pharmaceutical job, which is a very comfortable, cush job, right, to go do this. And we built up to that point, and we were shipping things all over the world at this time. Well, what happened is all the big box people, the Amazon, things like that, started coming in. And so we had a pretty exclusive deal with one shoe company that was really a big part of our business. And then that got shifted away, and Amazon really came in and put the hammer down. And so there was a lot of tough times in that. And, that was definitely my biggest failure. It was a very tough financial time period for about a year. Luckily, I was able to get out, sell that business store before it like tanked too much. But at the same time, it was still bad. Like, I'm no bones about it. It was terrible and it was hard to go through, but it built me up because it taught me so many lessons about business, about the way I need to operate my business. It helped, I think, just my relationships that I have in my life because, I had to rely on other people to help push me through those. So that was a big failure in my life, but it was a catalyst for pushing me forward, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. What advice would you give Matt back then that maybe some other people need to hear today?
I think you have to continue to believe in yourself and you have to have an incredible circle of people that push you to get better.
Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes, even if you look at, agents right now who may be struggling in the market, they can't find direction or they can't find that way of, hey, how do I move forward? Well, you just have to continue to do the things that matter, continue to have people in your circle that will help lift you up and believe in you to push you forward. So that's probably one of the things I'd say.
I really liked that. Continue to do what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Get really clear on that and continue to do
100%. Yeah.
I really like that. You mentioned you read every morning. How do you decide what books to read?
Well, some of them are assigned to us, right?
No, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, but they're always great. I gain so much from them. But I think part of it is, whether it's something that, is triggering me at the time, right? It may be a book that catches my interest, whether it's I listen to, so if I'm on Audible, like I'll look and say, oh, this one came up or something of that nature. But a lot of times it has to do with what I'm going through at the time.
Sure.
I feel like is a big part of it.
Awesome. What book would you recommend or what book have you recommended most in the past couple years?
I would say most, like one that I tell my team, everyone who comes on and we talk about a lot. It's been out for a long time, but the compound effect.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the big things that I always recommend to my team. Just because there's so much power in that and in the consistency, because if I look at my own life and I look at what's gone well for me, it's the things that I do consistently. It's when I don't do things consistently that things start to go, the wrong direction. But the things, whether it's my family or my faith or my health or things like that, those are things that I have tapped into for years and years and years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's definitely one of them. Organize Tomorrow Today is one that Brett introduced to me 2 years ago. That's had a big impact on me. I love the book by Keith Cunningham, The Road Less Stupid.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites for anytime I'm going through anything that's getting my mind where I'm not right. I just pull that out. There's so many things there because I did go down some stupid roads, right? And made some big mistakes and had some failures. And I don't want those again. So I love the thinking aspect of that book. So that's another one that I really, really enjoy.
Those are some really good ones. Those are some of my favorites. I have not taken out, I read The Road Less Stupid years ago, and I haven't taken it out recently. So I just made myself a note to pull that back out because your girl would like to take The Road Less Stupid more.
Yes, yeah. Anytime I can take that one, that's what I want.
That's exactly right. I can get that GPS in my life. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, you talked about consistency a lot. How are you realigning yourself? What tools or thoughts or even just something you say in your brain to yourself? How do you get yourself back on track?
I think we all get that feeling of overwhelmed. I know I do. I mean, you start out with the best intentions every single day, and then there's always a curveball coming in, right? So I think when I notice a trend of, hey, I'm just not dialed in, I look back and say, hey, am I doing the things that are important to me personally? Like, am I working out, right? Am I having, good quality conversations with my family? Like just doing things that I know are important and re-energize me because it drives me back to what's important in my life. And so, but definitely hitting the gym is good for me because it just is a way to escape. Talking with my wife, again, I think she just gives me a lot of clarity in things. So that's something that I do. And then I do go and pick up books. I love having books on hand because you can use them as a resource. So it's like, hey, I'm going through this. let me look further into this. Let me go back to this and use it as a resource. So that's one thing that I definitely do too.
I love that. What is a purchase? This is one of my favorite questions because I end up buying a lot of things with it. What purchase for $100 or less have you had recently, or you purchased recently that made a big impact, or that you're like, dang, this is cool. I like this.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about $100 or less. I was like, man, I don't
Inflation
know.
Increase that.
I know. Yeah, exactly. You might should bump that up a little bit. But I did think about one of the things that helped me a lot, and I bought it. It's probably been maybe 7 or 8 months ago or so. It was an app. It's called the Level Up app, and it's through Jason Selk, who wrote that book, Organize Tomorrow Today. And so before, there was the print, you could sort of see like how to go through it, and I was writing it down. But this app, I found it to be really powerful because I start my day with it every day, and it goes through and it helps me realize, hey, this is what I did well. So it helps you sort of re-engage that confidence that sometimes we can all lose, right? It helps me really focus on, hey, what are the 3 most important things and one thing I have to do? Helps you with your personal vision and things like that. So it's been an app, and it just continues to take you through this process. So I've incorporated it in my routine every day. It takes like 3 or 4 minutes, but it's helped me tremendously. I would say that's been a big thing.
I'm going to download it because I am a huge Jason Selk fan.
Yeah.
I love Organized Tomorrow Today. It's one of my favorite books. And then when we post this recording, we'll post the link to download that app. I think that's an incredible resource. So I didn't even know that existed. So thank you. All right. Last weird question. What is an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love? There's no right or wrong answers here. Just so you know, one of the answers has been fillet of fish. So.
Well, I don't love fillet of fish. I'm not a fan of fillet of fish. I think, I don't know. I think that's a tough one for me. I'm pretty boring. I feel like I'm pretty boring sometimes, right?
Okay, if I asked your kiddos, what would they say was weird about Dad?
Oh man, that I can't make it through a movie at night. Like I cannot make it. I fall asleep. I do. I just can't make it through.
I can't either.
I don't have a shot. If it's starting a movie and it's dark outside, I'm done. I'm out.
That's so funny.
I make it as long as I can.
I have the same problem. I would say it's like one of the top 3 friction points between my husband and I.
Yes.
Like, and then I'm like, what happened? I need to rewatch it. And he's like, you're wasting my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
My wife, she can stay up, watch them just fine. But for me, it starts slow, and she knows like 20 minutes in. If I make it past 20 minutes, it's great.
That's so funny. Are you a morning guy? How early are you waking up?
Yeah, I'm a morning guy. I'm usually up by 5. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm a big morning guy. So my kids are in sports, so I know that if I don't get my workout in the morning, like there's pretty tough shot I'm gonna get in the afternoon or the evening. So it's pretty important to me. So try and do that. Well,
outside looking in, and I think it rings true based upon the results in your life, your consistency, your direction, your clarity on your direction, as well as your disciplines have served you very well, my friend. Yeah. And so I can't thank you enough for being on this call with us. Some people may have some follow-up questions for you that are part of our group already. And we always want to encourage our community to lean on each other. If people do have a question or want to reach out for something offline, maybe they need a little help or a little encouragement in a specific way, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Probably just give me a call or shoot me a text, I would say.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So,
all right. Cool. Well, you guys can access that in the roster. You can access Matt's information. And Matt, I can't thank you enough. We post these and put these videos inside of our Scale to Wealth portal under Legends of Be Wealthy. So this video will be posted there along with our other legends. But with your permission, I'd like to include this video in our deal hierarchy section, so that people can really see a day in the life of what it looks like and building it out and learn a lot from you. So we'll have you featured in a few different spots that a lot of our members can learn from.
Cool. All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much for everything you do. I really appreciate everything.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Matt. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.